A client I coach recently told me he tracks 17 performance metrics. 17 daily productivity score, weekly deliverables, quarterly KPIs, the works. How's that working for you? I asked. Well, I'm consistently disappointed in myself, he said, half laughing. What if you only tracked one thing? I said. What would actually tell you if you're succeeding? He thought for a while. Then he said, honestly, whether I'm having insights. That's when I create the most value, when my brain connects things others don't see. And when do those insights happen? Never when I'm trying to have them, he admitted. Usually when I'm completely off task. That conversation changed how he measures everything. And it's about to change how you measure yourself too. Most executives I work with are already successful by any traditional measure. Corner offices, impressive titles, solid track records, but they're measuring themselves with tools designed for neurotypical brains: consistent daily output, linear progress, standardized productivity metrics. Your brain creates value differently, in bursts of insight rather than steady output, through pattern recognition rather than sequential processing, by solving problems that weren't even identified yet rather than checking predetermined boxes. When you measure jazz with a metronome, it sounds like chaos, but it's not chaos, it's innovation. What would be different if you counted the progress no one else can see? The perfectionism spiral you stopped before it started. The meeting where you successfully managed your impulse to interrupt, the energy you conserved by saying no to a good but not great opportunity, the relationship you strengthened through an unexpected, authentic moment. A CEO I work with started tracking what she calls invisible wins, things like recognizing she was depleted before making a major decision, delegating something she could have done herself, letting a good idea go because it wasn't the right time. These invisible wins, she told me, they're actually what makes everything else possible. What if facing the same challenges repeatedly isn't failure? What if it's mastery and development? Think about it. A master chef still burns things occasionally. A professional athlete still misses shots. The difference isn't that challenges disappear, it's that recovery becomes faster, impact becomes smaller, learning becomes immediate. Where might you be spiraling upward while thinking you're going in circles? What metric would change everything if you gave yourself permission to use it? One of my executives now measures energy ROI, not how many hours he works, but how much value he creates per unit of energy spent. Another tracks connection moments, the unexpected conversations that lead to breakthroughs. A third just tracks whether she used her systems imperfectly instead of abandoning them. What would you track if you were designing metrics for your brain instead of someone else's? What patterns would emerge if you zoomed out far enough? ADHD progress happens in waves, leaps, and sudden elevations. Day to day looks like randomness. Month to month reveals patterns. Quarter to quarter shows transformation. What timeline would show your real progress? What's possible when you stop comparing yourself to neurotypical standards? Here's what I know. The executive who takes 3 days to do what others do in one might create more value in a 3-hour hyper-focus session than others create in a month. The leader who seems scattered in meetings might be the only one seeing how all the pieces actually connect. What becomes visible when you measure against your own baseline instead of theirs? What would shift if you celebrated the small victories your brain needs? ADHD brains run on dopamine and accomplishment, not massive accomplishments, just the feeling of forward movement. Using your calendar system imperfectly. R. Directing hyperfocus successfully. Asking for what you need. These aren't participation trophies, they're fuel. What small wins could fuel your bigger victories? What's the simplest tracking method that would actually serve you? Forget complex systems. One executive just puts a check mark on days he tried, not succeeded, tried. Another rates her energy from 1 to 5 each evening. A third writes one insight per day on a sticky note. Simple sustains, complex collapses. What could you sustain? Simple tracking beats elaborate systems every time. Your brain doesn't create value in straight lines. It creates through connections, insights, and innovative leaps. When you measure that with linear metrics, you miss your actual contribution. What becomes possible when you measure like an innovator instead of a factory worker? In your workbook, you'll design metrics that actually reflect how your brain creates value, not how it should work, but how it does work. Next, we'll talk about your sustainable path forward, because this isn't about fixing what's wrong, it's about amplifying what's already working.